It's the Lockdown NFL podcast. Bo Brock hanging out with you on a Monday episode. Thanks for joining us. Our new YouTube channel is live. Great daily content there. Subscribe and get to all those updates anytime we drop some content. You'll get a little notification to your smart device. Hanging out here with Evan Sidery. With the thrill of victory, there was the agony and defeat, and some teams that had big time aspirations and not. We're probably going to march through the playoffs. Be some big time players there. Fell short. And that was the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know if you could find a bigger case than that than Indianapolis. All they had to do was beat the lowly Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday, and they're in the postseason, and they couldn't do that. Not only did they lose to the Jaguars, they got blown out 26-11. Evan, what if you can just summarize what went wrong for the Colts in Jacksonville?
I mean, to be quite honest, Bo, I think that was the most embarrassing loss in the history of Indianapolis Colts. Just the way it went down. Carson Wentz, for those who didn't watch the game, I don't blame you because Colts versus Jaguars, it was unwatchable on both sides. But Carson Wentz looked like 2020 Carson Wentz for Philadelphia. He was quite frankly awful out there. He was missing reads left, and his mechanics off from the very beginning. He two interceptions, one that was called back, and another one that was dropped. So he could have had 3 interceptions in this game. He was just completely all over the place, and it kind of proves the point that Colts fans have been worried about all season long. And for myself, I'm kind of glad it happened now instead of in the postseason on a bigger stage because he's consistently shown now that he wilts under pressure. He wilts in must-win clutch situations. In 4 games this year that I consider must-win, Bo, he's completed 54% of his passes for 4 interceptions on that as well. And it's just been awful. You had a 98% chance of making the playoffs heading out of Christmas when they beat your Cardinals, Bo, and losing to the Cardinals, or beating the Cardinals, excuse me, then we had chances to split between the Raiders and the Jaguars. 98% chance of making the playoffs. They blow that somehow. Just incredible. Awful game from Carson Wentz. The defense was sluggish throughout. Trevor Lawrence looks like a competent quarterback today as well. And it's really like it's a crazy stat for those that don't know about this, but the Colts have not won in Jacksonville now in 7 years, since 2014. And the Jaguars, over this 2-year period, they have 4 wins, and 2 of those against the Colts.
It's wild that sometimes some teams just have your number, but to have Jacksonville be that team, it's crazy. As you mentioned, Trevor Lawrence, 2 touchdowns in the win. With Carson Wentz, with all that being said, where does this team go from here? I mean, do they run it back? Do they think just full off season with Carson Wentz in the fold, and that they can, him and Frank Reich, reunited from their Philly days, can really iron out all that's going to need to be ironed out for this team to truly get to where they thought they were going this season, and that's contending for a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think honestly, the Colts are boxed in. They don't really have a choice right now, except something that falls in their lap, like the Matthew Stafford trade at the Rams, where you could trade Carson Wentz and like 2 future first-round picks for a Russell Wilson or an Aaron Rodgers. But that's probably very unlikely from the Colts standpoint. So I think the Colts now have to realize this is next year is your last year for the Carson Wentz era. It has to work out perfectly. Frank Reich's job is on the line next year, I imagine, because he was the one that wanted to go all in on Carson Wentz. It hasn't worked out so far. So he's going to be on the hot seat too as well. You have to invest heavily in weapons. You only have one guy on offense that scares you, and Jonathan Taylor. You have no legit game breakers on the outside. Michael Pittman's a solid receiver, but I think he's more of a number 2 than number 1 long term. There's no tight ends really. It's just a really weird situation this offense is in, and you invested so much in Carson Wentz, where with the way Wentz has played the last 6 weeks of the season, I would have been like, okay, go out and get your guy in the draft because you can get off Carson Wentz's contract after next season with no dead cap. But you trade a first-round pick today. The Colts did exactly what they weren't supposed to do the whole season. Miss the playoffs and give up a top 18 pick in the draft. That's exactly what they did the last 2 weeks. And it's just a really worst case scenario spot for this Colts team to be in, Bo. They're kind of in purgatory right now. You have to invest while you can, because now the urgency is there for this Colts team, where if they don't do anything good next year either, there's going to be some legitimate talk about getting rid of Frank Reich, I believe, because he was the one, like I mentioned, that wanted Carson Wentz, and he put his job on the line for that.